All right, what is up, W Sports Podcast? Jimothy and Tubby, we are back at it again with a live episode because we want you to be a part of it. We're doing some NFL divisional round predictions today. It's going to be a fun show. And then just so you know, we have a bonus episode tomorrow that is going to be baseball centered. So if you are just like us and you are literally counting down the days until we get to pitchers and catchers reporting, spring training starting, hey, we got you. And that is tomorrow's episode. So make sure that you're subscribed if you haven't already. But and then if you did stop by and you're like, who they got in the championship game? Tubby and I, we've got it planned. We got the episode for you right before the game. Any last minute changes, we have you all covered. We'll have a breakdown of the championship game later on this weekend. So there's a lot coming down the road, Tubby. Man, it's a great time to be a fan.
It is. I mean, especially just being a football fan, some of these matchups this weekend are going to be great.
I think the NFL has to be happy overall.
Yeah.
Like I think they would have. They
Mhm.
still have the really. It was a terrible situation in Los Angeles. They have the narrative to carry that
Mhm.
team, the momentum. It's a
Yeah.
great buy-in for people to really want to root for this team to just support LA in that way.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, a lot of star power there. There's just so many good storylines here.
Yeah. I mean, then you cap it off with Bills Ravens Sunday night. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
boy. I mean, you've got like the young up and coming star versus the 3-time Super Bowl champ. And then you've got another young up and coming star versus the America's team right now. I would think you would say in Detroit, and everyone hoping Detroit can find a way to get Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the firepower, the offensive firepower you got with the Eagles, and then just the heartwarming story with the Rams, with everything that's going on in LA. They
Mm-hmm.
played for LA, and then you cap it off with the top two probably in the MVP race this year, two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, I don't think you can get much better than that.
And it is going to be just a great weekend for pro football. Very excited about it. So I'm obviously repping a little bit. I mean, I got to put all the good energy out there. The
Yeah.
game is tomorrow. Right now, I think it's the first time it's really been above freezing. We've got the wind from the south today. We're trying to melt as much snow as possible. It's been on the ground for 2 straight weeks. I feel like we got permafrost here. There's no way we do.
Yeah.
But we're getting in preparation for tomorrow's game, where if you've looked at the high, it's like 30, but that's at midnight because it will only get colder and game time temperature feels like it's going to be single digits again.
Well, I guess the Dolphins are probably happy it's not them this time.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, I do. And the Texans, they're an indoor team, a southern
Yeah.
team, but I don't think they have the rap yet that the Dolphins do. Dolphins have had this for so long, so it's going to be kind of
Yeah.
tough. So that is the first game. So I think we should just dive right on in. We talk about who you got. What are some of the keys to this game that you're seeing for both teams to make sure it stays competitive, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, I think for Kansas City, I think they're going to. I think it's going to be for both sides. You're going to have to establish the run. I mean,
That seems fair.
the Chiefs, what got them there last year, all the success they had last year outside of the defense on the offensive side was giving Isaiah Pacheco the ball. And now you got Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. Pacheco's had a couple weeks to, heal up even more. And maybe now he comes out and he's just running like he does normally, where he's just mad all the time and he's trying to break the ground. But I think that he's going to be the big storyline for them on the offense if they're able to get the offense going. And then, can Joe Tooney hold up on the outside against this daunted pass rush from the Texans? I mean, who are one of the tops in the NFL in sacks this year. And then for the Texans, you've got to get Joe Mixon going to take all that pressure off of CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I don't understand any game plan that has the Texans and it doesn't involve giving the ball, going through Joe Mixon as much as possible. I understand they love to pass the ball, but sometimes they get away from running the ball with a guy he's a top 5 running back in the league right now. I think it'd be a fun conversation to try to figure out where he's at, but I think he's right there on that top 5. And they were at their best when they did this, and they got away from it for so long, and they dealt with some injuries. I think for the Chiefs, whatever the first half is, I don't care. I don't think that matters in this game because I do think the Chiefs are going to come out rusty. I think it's impossible not to, with this long of a gap of actually playing football. We talked about that last week. But you cannot count either of these teams. Like, you can't count specifically the Chiefs out in the second half at home. So, I mean, it's a massive home field advantage. Everybody knows it. You're going to feel
Yeah,
it's going to be cold. The Chiefs are ready for it. And I mean, I don't want to make my pick so fast. I don't know if you can tell who I'm going to pick in this game. I am picking the Super Bowl, two back-to-back Super Bowl champs, the Chiefs, in this game. But I do think this is, a one-possession game. I think it's going to be close.
yeah. I think that the interesting thing will be how the Texans handle the cold weather,
Hmm.
because you look at the teams that they play in their division, and the only northern team that they play that would, potentially play in cold weather plays in a dome also. I mean, granted, CJ Stroud played at, Ohio State, so he's played in the cold weather before. But when was the last time he played in this cold weather with this type of stakes on the line? Is going to be an interesting thing. See how he is able to go through the game, because we hadn't seen the same CJ Stroud we saw last year. Part of it
Hmm.
could be due to injuries. Part of it could be due to the fact that maybe teams have kind of figured him out a little bit more, and he's going to have to,
They have no
change
offensive
some
line.
things up. Yeah, offensive line has been way worse this year, but I think the Chiefs win this game, and I think it will be a good game, but I think the Chiefs win it by 2 touchdowns.
Okay, you think it's gonna be a little bit not quite as close
Yeah.
a game as one, but
Hmm.
maybe I'm kind of feeling like you were last week as a Packers fan. I'm like, I mean, I can't get too hyped up yet, but
Yeah.
I'm very excited. It's crazy that this is the kickoff for the weekend. But when you look at all four matchups, I think this one is probably the one that you I don't know. It's not the best
Hmm.
game that we're going to get to this one. The Baltimore, the MVPs, you alluded to this earlier. That
Hmm.
is the game. I just cannot wait to watch this weekend. It's going to be great. But let's go from the Chiefs to the other number one seed. We got the Detroit Lions, home field advantage. They got Washington Commanders coming into the building with a lot of momentum with Jaden Daniels. Is it going to be enough for them to overtake the number one seed?
I don't think it's going to be enough, but I think this game is going to be close, because I don't know. They kind of give me the same vibe as what we got last year with the Texans. In the Packers,
Yeah.
these two young teams that weren't really expecting anything, and then they make it to the playoffs, and then you're like, okay, maybe we don't want to face them because their young quarterback is on a heater right now, and
Yeah.
we know Jaden Daniels. If it's a close game and he's got the ball in his hand at the end of the game, Detroit's not feeling good,
Yeah.
because we've seen it so far in his first year in the NFL. He has the poise of a 10-year vet, where he's like, I'm going to go down the field, I'm going to score, and we're going to win this ball game. I ain't worried about it. He kind of, I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, but he has that Mahomes like, composure when it comes to the late in the games. You give him the ball late in the game, you're not feeling too great with his track record so far if you're the opposite team, because he has shown that, hey, I can throw a 50-yard Hail Mary and complete it and win a
Yeah.
game.
And I think one of the biggest pieces you saw it last week in the playoff game on the road against Baker Mayfield after they tied up or they tied up with the field goal. There's 4.5 minutes left, just barely 4.5 minutes left in the game. And does Baker ever see the ball again?
Nope.
No. And that is what championship style football teams have to do. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot give the ball back. And so that was a really, really cool moment to watch a young quarterback just take the team down there. And that was obviously a team effort, but
Yeah.
making the right decisions, not forcing the ball, and obviously good play calling too to take up that time, because if you throw two straight incompletions,
Yeah.
you better get that third one. So it's just it was a really good sign for them. I do think this is going to be a good game, but give me
Mm-hmm.
Detroit all day in this game. I do
Yeah.
think, Jameer Gibbs, the offensive firepower that this Lions team has, they could put up 45
Yeah.
and still give up quite a few, but I don't know that I see Washington as a team that can put up 35 plus. And maybe I'm wrong, but I do think
Yeah.
Detroit wins this one. And I would say a higher scoring game.
Yeah. I agree. I think Detroit can put up as many points as they want on this defense, especially in the secondary with Jameson Williams really coming on up late, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, weapons to throw through. Tim Patrick has been a really solid number 3 wide receiver for him. And then, like you said, Jameer Gibbs, and you get Knuckles back this week.
Wild.
David Montgomery coming back, that gives you your two-headed monster that was so successful most of the season up until David Montgomery got hurt. The one thing for the Lions, though, is the question is, how healthy is that defense? I mean, your secondary's beat up, your linebacker crew is beat up. Alex Anzalone's playing through a broken wrist,
Mm-hmm.
and then your defensive line is beat up. So it's really going to see, does that rust affect the defense even more? And do they, maybe give up a few more points than what we were expecting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's going to be obviously okay. You can't give up that many points, but I don't know. I think if the Lions can force them to be one dimensional, that's exactly what Tampa Bay did, and they still were
Yeah.
able to make it work in the end there. But
Yeah.
it's going to be a great start to the evening game slate right there. It's going to be good. So we both got Kansas City, we both got Detroit, we got the one seeds moving on. Let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Are going to be playing the Rams. That's the
Yeah.
earlier game. I don't think weather is going to be as big of a factor as it will be for other places.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be in the, like 30s and stuff like that, or whatever, 25s, 30s.
Hmm.
So it seems like it's going to be okay.
Hmm.
Who you got in this one?
I'm going with the Rams. And I'm going with the Rams because
Wow.
I think the Rams, if the game comes down to it and Jalen Hurts has to win the game, I don't know if Jalen Hurts can win the game right now. He hasn't showed. I mean, really, they're one of the. If you look at the stats, they're one of the towards the bottom in passing this year in the NFL, even with Devonta Smith and AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert. Yeah, he was out most of the season, but you got Goddard back now. I don't think that he can get it done. And I've seen Matthew Stafford win a Super Bowl, and I feel like this, like we talked about it, not last week, but the week before, when we did the predictions. This team has a good like story behind them to motivate them to play even harder. And we saw it last week. They went out and had 9 sacks against a 14, win
team.
Minnesota Vikings team. And we saw last week, I mean, yeah, Rams defense secondary may not be able to, do exactly what the Packers did, but we saw Jalen Hurts have an absolute stinker of a game. So I think that there's a good chance that could happen again. And if you can really, I mean, maintain Saquon Barkley enough, like the Packers did, if they play that same way the Packers did, they have a much better chance at winning, I think, than the Packers did.
Yeah, just want to point out in the chat, Matthew thinks you hit your head. That's what he said.
I may have, but
yeah, no, I appreciate you being in the chat. I'd love to know what is your. This is exactly how I feel all the time, Matt. Thanks for that. Some good point every single time. He backs it up. I'm just saying. Now, Matthew, feel free to put your predictions in the chat too. We want to make sure that we're keeping up with everybody else, and we got off to a rough start. Myself this year for the first time, like 3-3 in the week one is brutal. Tubby's still 4-2. So this is, I think we're going to part a little bit. I am going to go with Philadelphia. I think home field is going to be a big part. This is a long road trip, of course, but it is the playoffs. They're going to be ready to go. And I do trust Matthew Stafford. I just worried that neither of these teams are that explosive. So does it come down to defense? And you just gave all the great points, like Matt put in the chat, of why you could see LA, but I think the home field advantage is what I'm going to give it to the Eagles and Saquon Barkley. I think they just have to make sure they go through him even more. Maybe even give him in the passing game more so than they have really this season.
I mean, he only has 300 yards receiving this year. I mean, which used to be a massive part of his offense. But I mean, when you're running the football the way you did this year, no reason to throw him the football. Just hand it to him.
Yeah.
So I absolutely get it, but I don't know. There's just something about that. I feel like the defense for the Rams is going to play with their hair on fire once again, and they're going to get after him because when it came down to the game with the Minnesota Vikings, it wasn't, the defensive line really beating the offensive line. It was all those exotic blitzes and stunts that they were running. And granted, this offensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles is way better than the Rams.
Yeah.
But there's also the thing is like you're running these blitzes and stunts and stuff.
Yeah.
It makes it harder. And the Packers don't do that. Packers don't blitz. They run, just a normal 4-man rush. Typically, every once in a while, they'll blitz a linebacker. But when the Packers did blitz that linebacker, that's when you saw Jalen Hurts really struggle in the passing game because he started out 6 for 6, and then they started trying to blitz him a little bit more, and that's when we saw Jalen Hurts really start to struggle. And I think that's what the Rams are going to do. They're going to blitz him on passing downs and force him to make throws. And I just don't know if the arm accuracy is quite there right now.
Yeah. Well, Matt in the chat, he got Kansas City. He has Detroit and Philly, which match my pick so far. So I'll throw in his fourth pick here as we get to this last game. But again, great points. I really Can't fault you for those. We got Buffalo versus Baltimore. Buffalo obviously is the higher seed, so they get to host this game. It looks like it's just going to be cold, but it's Buffalo. Maybe we get a lot of snow in this game. You have the top two MVP candidates outside of Saquon Barkley. You have two quarterbacks who can do it all. You have running backs who have dominated this year getting into the end zone. I don't know if we have two running backs who have scored this much in a game. And again, in the chat, they were just talking about how the only team that doesn't have an elite running back left is Kansas City. 100% accurate. I mean, you look at these teams, all of them really have someone you can count on to go, 25 carries. I don't think the Chiefs have that. They could split it up.
Pacheco absolutely could be. I mean, I love Pacheco. I love the way he runs the football. He runs mad. He runs mean. I think that he is very much of a top 10 caliber running back. And the reason why I think a lot of people are overlooking him is because he was hurt most of the season.
Yeah.
And so most people are like, oh, Kareem Hunt was the running back. Well, Pacheco, when he's healthy, we saw it last year. He propelled the Chiefs offense to a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, well, and they're going to need him to do that this year. But I will say they have a better skill positions across the board outside of Travis Kelce are better this year than ever. The one thing I need to see from Pacheco is he's got to have better vision. Sometimes because, like you said, he runs so angry, he smashes through that hole rather than takes a half a step later and bounces it and and just goes north south still. But that's the one thing I see that Kareem Hunt does a little bit better at this stage of his career. He's been in the league quite a while. And he's been a good running back too. That's what I want to see his next level get up there. So anyway, we got to go back to Baltimore, Buffalo. So who do you got in this one, Tubby?
Man, this game is going to be an absolute dogfight, I think. This game, I think, is going to be super exciting. You got the two best players in the NFL this year, or maybe three, two of the three. I think Joe Burrow's up there. Joe Burrow just, was on a bad team, so people don't give him quite as much love as he should have got this year. But I'm going to go with the guy that we've seen win more in the playoffs and has been, like you alluded to, the last how many months, he's Superman. And especially in the playoffs. The one team he can't beat in the playoffs is the Chiefs. So I'm not worried about any of the other teams in the playoffs right now. I think that we have seen him in the playoffs, and Josh Allen shows up in those big moments. Give me the Buffalo Bills. We haven't seen Lamar do it past round one. I don't know if he can do it again. So I'm gonna go. I mean, they got a bad draw. I mean, having to play Buffalo in Buffalo, it's rough for them, especially with the season they had. And I think another obstacle is who you're going to throw the football to. I know Zay Flowers may play, but how healthy is he? Because if he's still questionable and barely practicing right now, is he going to be healthy enough to be a difference maker in the passing game for you outside of Mark Andrews? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that the winner of this game, and for the record, Matt in the chat, he picked Baltimore. So there you go. I'm also picking Baltimore, but here's the biggest difference. I can't disagree with anything you're saying, but I am going to say the winning team has a running back that has more than 25 carries, and that should be the Baltimore Ravens. That should be the Ravens, even if they're down. That should be. But if James Cook can get the ball that many times, or 25 touches, that means the Bills are doing something right. And the thing that will hurt both of these teams is if they rely too much on Superman, right? If they rely too much on Lamar Jackson gets hurt or something crazy like that. You don't need to see. Obviously, that's part of the dynamicness of the offense. You're going to see him run the ball a lot, but I'm just telling you, trust these really solid running backs and a future Hall of Famer for sure in Derrick Henry. This dude wears teams down. That's my biggest reason. Is that on paper, that's who should win in my mind is Baltimore.
Yeah, no. If Baltimore doesn't give the ball to Derrick Henry 28 times like they did last week, then they should lose. Just because we saw it last year. I don't think that Munkin's going to do the same thing he did and make the same mistakes he did last year, where he only ran the ball 4 times against the Chiefs.
Idiot.
But I think that you talk about the run game. We talked about the run game ad nauseum for the last 4 years, how much you have to run the football. And I think the Bills will continue to try to run the football, but do you want to run it at the strength of that defense? More than likely not. So I think what's going to happen a lot is we're going to see Josh Allen run. And granted, we don't like our quarterbacks running, but Josh Allen is 6'5", 230 some pounds. He can take the hits. We've seen it before. I think that he'll be the running threat for the Bills than it would be
James Cook. That's
James
fair.
Cook.
That's a fair point. I just feel like for both these teams, you got to have one or two guys that are spying the whole time. You stay in the gap, do the smart thing, and don't let those guys run. You just can't let it happen.
Yeah, I mean,
It's easier said than done,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody'd be doing it if it was that easy, but you're in the
Mhm.
playoffs. You should be able to do this at this point. You didn't get to this point to be one of the final four teams in your conference if you
Yeah.
weren't able to do if you weren't one of the best ones. So you better lock it in.
And then Buffalo, they're the only team in the NFL to have beaten the Lions and the Chiefs.
It's an accurate point, and that might be their path to the Super Bowl too,
Yeah.
to get the championship.
Yeah.
So, but it's hard. It's going to be an incredible weekend, Tubby. There is one final thought we have before we wrap up the show as we head into a great playoff weekend. We have a giveaway coming up this month, right?
We do.
We
Once
do.
again, we have another signed NFL jersey. So the first hint we gave was he's a Hall of Fame linebacker.
Mhm.
Second hint we gave, he is a Super Bowl winning linebacker. The third and fourth hint, I gave you 2 hints, was he is a 9-time All-Pro, that's first team and second team, and led the NFL in tackles in 3 separate seasons. So now the new giveaway hint for this week is he won the Defensive Player of the Year.
Oh, you're not going to give us the year, I assume, because that'd be too easy.
If I gave him the year.
Yeah.
Google it up real quick, and no, I got to make it a little bit harder. I'm going to do like we did last time. I'm going to make it hard at the beginning so you can see if maybe someone can dive in and find it. And then after, once it gets closer,
Yeah, we get closer.
Then I'll start giving out a little bit more easier hints.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, I thought I knew it for sure last time, and we got off the episode, and then I was like, "Is it?" And you're like, "No," but it was a good guess. Is what you
It
told me.
was.
But, so make sure that you can put your guess in the chat because that is how you can get extra entries into this free signed jersey giveaway. We want you to get it. We want you to have it. We want it to be yours. And we want to say thank you so much again for subscribing because that is the easiest and that is the way that you get at least one entry every single month is by subscribing to the show. So make sure you do that. We're on a journey to get to 300 subscribers, which we greatly appreciate each and every one of y'all. It's going to be a great playoff weekend. We hope y'all enjoy it. We hope y'all stay safe. Till then, see y'all next time.
See ya.